Thanks, Joe. Joe's got us recorded. Good morning, everybody. Oh, I've got my background on. That's a beautiful picture of the St. George Valley there. I'm actually in Salt Lake, though. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining me this morning. So we're going to jump right into this. We're talking about the subject to sale, which we're seeing a lot more of. And I thought I'd give a little twist to that, if that's okay. Share screen. Okay, here it is. So I hope you guys are real familiar with this document. It was changed down here. What's the exact date? In July of 2020. It replaced a document that was structured really complicatedly, I guess. And it kept deadlines based on after the offer is received on buyer's property. This is pretty straightforward. We expect buyer to go ahead and conduct due diligence, meaning they pay for inspections. We expect them to go ahead and pay for appraisal. And if they want earnest money completely refundable, then the last deadline here of financing appraisal deadline would be out, 2 months maybe, right? If they want all their earnest money refundable and they want a chance to get the property sold. That was kind of what we received. So we got an offer that had a financing and appraisal deadline of 60 days from the time of acceptance, approximately. And we had due diligence, which was like 14 days. So that's what we were sitting at. Just to refresh your memory on this, if they cancel based on subject to sale after financing and appraisal, they would lose their earnest money. If they cancel prior to, then they would have a refund of earnest money. Okay, so and the seller would agree to accept as an exclusive remedy. Let me stop for just a second and give you guys a legal basis for some of this stuff. I mentioned this yesterday in Park City sales meeting. Stop share for just a sec. There are two different things I think you have to understand. We have earnest money for damages, and then we have this right to sue based on lack of performance. So if someone contracts to purchase and fails to do so, and become in default, then they're subject to the Section 16 default remedies and subject to a lawsuit for performance. So we'll see language that says conditioned upon, and then we separate those two issues out. So the reason why we would be losing earnest money is to pay for damage. We cut off the ability for a lawsuit. So we've seen that language show up in a couple of things that we've even drafted internally. One of them was the no financing addendum, where we put language in there to have seller accept as a seller's exclusive remedy. Remember seeing this in the contract, or understand, you see that a few times? The seller agrees to accept as seller's exclusive remedy the earnest money deposit. Okay, meaning we cut off their ability for a lawsuit. Okay. Now back to our subject to sale. We're saying we're making an offer that's subject to the closing of buyer's property. Well, have you guys had sellers who are saying, well, should I even accept this kind of offer? Should I keep looking? What are my options here? This particular buyer was asking the seller to go off market for 60 days while they had a chance to get their property under contract. If the buyer canceled 59 days from acceptance, the seller has no damage. There's no earnest money. Okay, Jennifer just sent me the two forms I need, right? So we don't have any kind of way to protect our seller. So I think that there's a middle ground here that you should contemplate. And this is just frankly the Berkshire way. You need to know this on the high level, have, not just the standard, here's the addendum, it is what it is, it's all or nothing. I think there's a in-between ground, okay? Let me pull them up. So this is internal documents that we already have created only for Berkshire. Yeah, okay, here they are. I got to get him an Acrobat, guys. One sec. I tried to get all this done this morning, but oh, you guys know, you live with technology just like I do. Oh my gosh, now I'm getting prompts and spinning wheels, and isn't this fun? Let me pull one more, guys. One more, here we go. So if you have your forms manual, it's in section 1. Tab 1 has all of our internal documents that are Brookshire only. So, okay. Turkey, it only gave me one. All right, share screen. Does this look familiar? So remember back in the hot market where we were writing offers with non-refundable earnest money? Yes? You guys with me? Thanks for nodding, Kate. Someone's paid. I'm telling you, Zoom's a tough crowd. So, all right, so here it is. This is something that we wrote to be competing against other buyers. Now I think we can look at it, we can use this as but through another set of lenses here. The seller is not going to take their property off the market without some kind of compensation for doing so. So here in this particular non-refundable earnest money, a portion of it can be non-refundable. So let me read it through to you. No later than 4 calendar days after acceptance, buyer agrees to deposit funds in an amount equal to the earnest money deposit into the buyer's broker's trust account. Notwithstanding anything to the contrary set forth in the Rep C, buyer and seller acknowledge and agree that blank of the earnest money. Okay, so a portion of the earnest money shall become non-refundable upon acceptance. The remainder of the earnest money deposit shall be administered according to with the terms of the Rep C. So you might want to marry this together with the subject to sale. Let's say the earnest money is 10 grand. Let's say the seller wants half of that to take the property off the market for 60 days while the buyer tries to sell the property. 5,000 would go here, and the remainder of the earnest money, 5,000, will be administered terms of the Rep C. Okay. All right. Let me open this up for questions. How does that sound, guys? Any you like the idea? So instead of us just being straight, like it's either all or nothing, we can marry another addendum with that, and I think we could solve some of the problem of not having any damage at all if the seller takes the property off the market. Any comments?
Will, can I chime in with a question?
Yeah.
If you're okay on that subject to sell, I'm not seeing anywhere that says that the earnest. So if you have your due diligence period, let's say it's 14 days, right? You pass your due diligence, but it's subject to sell. But that addendum is like protecting the earnest money, right? If you don't do that, what addendum I mean is subject to sell. So unless you have the new addendum you talked about, the earnest money becoming non-refundable, the earnest money would be refundable if they didn't sell their property, right?
Only prior to the financing and appraisal deadline.
Okay, thanks.
So let's, in our hypothetical here is our financing appraisal deadline is 60 days. Buyer does not have an offer and they cancel at 59 days, they get all the earnest money back. If they cancel at 61 days or later, then they would lose their earnest money. So section 24, I would imagine, would be pretty standard dates on, the disclosures, seller disclosures and due diligence. Then we have financing and appraisal. Then we have settlement. So settlement would clearly be after financing and appraisal. So let's say it's day 70. Okay. So at day 61, they cancel, they lose their earnest money. If they don't perform on day 70, they lose their earnest money. So that sits well, I guess, if the seller gets compensated. But if they cancel on day 59, sellers are not happy about that idea, right? So what we could do is grab a non-refundable earnest money addendum, which is an internal document. It's not a UAR form. It's not a Park City form. We grab that document and we use it in conjunction with. So we say a portion of, like, all our seller was really saying is, okay, I'll play ball, but you have to have some skin in the game for me to take the property off the market for 60 days. Make sense, everybody? That's all this really is. Just like if you're gonna have skin in the game. So, hey, you want a $10,000 earnest money? Fine. 3,000 of it is non-refundable upon acceptance. I'll go ahead and give you enough time to sell your property.
Hey,
Okay.
Will,
Yep. Hi,
it
Mark.
seems like you would want that to be after due diligence instead of upon acceptance for the non-refundable earnest money. So
Yes.
so that wording instead of acceptance should be expiration of due diligence or whatever.
Yes, excellent point. And actually, that is where we ended up with this. Thank you so much. It's as if you were part of the conversation. Thanks, Mark. And he wasn't. But yes, we wasn't his transaction. But yeah, that's exactly where we ended up. We allowed the buyer to do their due diligence upon the completion of due diligence or satisfactory due diligence. A portion of the earnest money is non-refundable. And really, it's kind of a hybrid of the language that's in section 1. We have another addendum also that places that in the seller's trust account. Occasionally, you guys are finding buyers who do not have an active trust account, or, well, buyer's broker does not have an active trust account. So instead of that going into a title company, we can place it in the seller's title company or seller's broker's title company. So excellent point, Mark. I do like that a lot better. That was my advice, is to not stick these guys with earnest money upon acceptance. It seems like those days are mostly over unless we have competing offers, which, you know, does change things. But and we still have a few, but seems like for the most part, we're not doing non-refundable upon acceptance. We'd be release of a portion of the earnest money after due diligence. So, so here, let's ramp it up a little bit more. What if you get an offer that has section 8.3 BI filled out and it's subject to sale? So if you've got your REPC handy, go to 8.3 BI. So the idea of this is the idea that Mark is bringing up about non-refundable earnest money happening or a portion of after due diligence. So this is the financing and appraisal condition in 8.3 BI, buyer's right to cancel before or after the financing and appraisal deadline. So if they cancel prior, that money is refundable. If they cancel after the due diligence, then a portion is non-refundable. So it is taking that idea with, if we add subject to sale, it does 8.3 BI is nuked by the subject to sale. Just want to be clear. So you don't get 8.3 BI idea if you have a subject to sale. So what you have to do is you have to kind of bring that language back into play by adding that to in another addendum. Everybody got that? So this is building upon, you know, what Mark said about after due diligence. Everybody good with that? So if it's already filled out and you have subject to sale, 8.3 BI does not apply. It's like, that's poor REPC writing. Perhaps the buyer intended to have a portion of their earnest money non-refundable, but still wanted to be able to not be sued, right, if they don't get the property sold, or a portion of their earnest money. So the idea is there, but contractually it's not enforceable because it's being nuked by the subject to sell addendum. Okay, because it's the last addendum. Okay, so we're going to have to bring that back in. Okay, that really was the point I was dying to make yesterday in Park City sales meeting, but I knew it would be like, what? That's a big room without having something to look at and taking our time to dive in. Any other comments or questions on this? I'm going to pivot if there's not. Talk to me, Goose. Nothing? You guys got it all, you got it all figured out? Okay. Thanks for the thumbs up, Britt. You guys on video are real lifesavers, man. I'm telling you, because it's tough crowd to not have someone react to you. Okay. Now I wanted to show. All right. So we've been talking a lot about creating, and managing expectations with our sellers, right, guys? Let me grab a list. So I've been kind of traveling around talking about how to create and manage. If you have not yet made it a habit to talk about the 7 factors, change that immediately. Make sure you understand what the 7 factors are. This is to help, with folks who say, well, you haven't sold my home yet. If we really controlled everything, I suppose we could be responsible for whether or not a property sells. But since we don't really control anything other than the marketing of a property, that shouldn't be laid upon us. But I think we talk ourselves into corners sometimes with our sellers. We set too high of expectations and we're not managing them correctly. So make sure that you're talking about your 7 factors. I wanted to, I did this discussion yesterday. Is John Eborn on the call? I'm panning through. I don't see him. John is a lifetime friend of mine, you guys, also a member of our band Playback. He's a great keyboard player. He's 30 years in the business. He's been a real estate coach and things like that. He's really talented guy, great thinker. I don't have his graph, or do I? Let's see if I can pull it up. Here was kind of what John was coping with. So a seller says, have I missed, my window of market? Oh, good. I've got it right here. Great. I'm going to now email this to me and show you guys. Email to Will. This is a really, really good idea. You're going to love this, and we can thank John for it. Sample appreciation. How many of you kind of already, okay, so here's, you've probably already thought of this. So if the market backed off, say 5%, how are you coping with that? What's more of the truth? What's the whole truth about what's really gone on in the market? So this is one that John pulled. Sharing screen, so here you go. Whoops, that was Windows, or Word. Share screen, here we go. Let's see, how do I just get that image to? So what you're looking at here is time at the bottom. Blow this up. And you're looking at a price range. I think is a townhome. So what John has done is looked at appreciation over time, kind of the historical appreciation. You can see it start to climb. And then, of course, in 21, it just really spiked up to almost 600,000. Well, what John was trying to say here is, look, would be a normal line of appreciation between the 2 red lines. If we took, say, your 2.5% to 3% and maybe your 4 or 5% appreciation over time, this is where we would have ended up, 420. But what we're actually at right now is much higher than that. We're a little over 500,000. There was a comp, I think, when I was talking to John, that dropped down that was a fixer-upper right here, which is our outlier. But look at this pattern of appreciation and look at the normal pattern. So I really like this idea when you're presenting this to your sellers. If they backed off a little bit in what their values were, say back in April, and they're a little nervous about that, make sure you give them a full picture. This is in one of the tips on that we've been going over lately is comparing data trends to 2019. Well, the same could be true for comparing it to 18, 17, and 16, right? I mean, look at the trends and don't get stuck or married to just what happened last year compared to this year. 20 and 21 are outliers. We're never going to see them again. They were a product of dramatically decreased interest rates and a high demand. We're not going to see that again. We're returning to seasonal patterns. We're returning to normal market. And if some of the price points have receded a little bit, make sure you're giving them the whole picture. As soon as you go from 2019 to today, you're going to see major amounts of appreciation, which is great news for sellers. And it puts it in perspective. So don't get hung up on where you could have been in April or March or something like that. And now you've dropped back a little bit. This should help you price it more appropriately and get price adjustments when needed. Okay, you like that tip? Is that a good one? So the way you go do that is grab your comps and then you can just trace that red line on there. And I think that's a really good way to address what's happening with appreciation. Okay. Any comments on that, you guys? I feel like I'm doing all the talking.
That's awesome, Will. Thank you. That's really helpful.
Okay, thanks, Britt. Well, I'm going to play another song again because I like the song. So there were three things in, do I have it in my Acrobat? Let's see. 7 factors, 7. Let's see, the 7 factors. When you are looking at pricing property, I do have it. Okay. All right. I'm showing screen again. Thanks, John. It's a good helper. Page 76 in the coaching manual. I have added to it. This is the new version of the 7 factors, but I just wanted to remind you guys, when it comes to pricing property, these 3 views, instead of just looking at the comparable approach, which is what we do mostly for residential real estate, remember to look at through the lenses of what your price competition is. So this is where we go really broad in our location. We might even look at an entire county in some cases. The Nicholas Peak listing that has sparked a lot of the the thoughts in my mind about how we price, because it's so unique, kind of triggered all this. But you might go as broad as an entire county when you're looking at your price competition. Okay. The next one is location, like a subdivision or something a little broader, or other subdivisions that are similar. And then the last one is just the amenities alone. What do we compete on with amenities? I recently saw a property had 2 master suites. I thought that was amazing. Like it's a great kind of an idea of a lot of visitors or guests will come, or a shared ownership. So if we have 2, master suites, how do we compete with other properties that have 2 master suites, or their own pool, or a workshop? You could go on and on. So what are they and how you compete? When you're looking at it through those lenses, in addition to your comparables, I think you've got a better way to price your property. Remember also to track the market after you get the listing. So, we should be really monitoring those under contracts. Okay. All right. That was I've got one final tip. We're really cruising along here. I've got to pull up the MLS to show you. Any comments, guys, while I'm doing that?
Well, Will?
Yes.
I just said in the chat, but since we got all the time,
okay. Yeah.
I just found that last point you were making really helpful in a broader context as well, because I'm thinking of 3 or 4 situations I've been butting up against just in the past few weeks where I could apply that trajectory to interest rates or you know, on buy side, my buyers are considering putting in their offer on a property, and they're thinking they can suddenly just like throw in this dramatic low ball. So just show that those two red lines represent such a nice metaphor of reasonability, and just like, let's just take a beat and zoom out and get some perspective.
Yep.
I think it'll be really effective. I think I'll use that in like a bunch of different ways.
Yeah, I thought John nailed it on that one. Okay, a couple other things I think you should do. This helps you look at different lenses. So what I've done here, guys, is MLS. This is the UtahRealEstate.com site. I'm pretty practiced at that. Not as practiced with Flex, but see if you can get the same. For those who are Flex users, maybe you can put in the chat the equivalent of this kind of reporting. So I've done sales by month here, and I chose Salt Lake County, and I did a residential condo town. You probably saw me fill it out. That was it. So it's really all residential sales inside the county. I chose graph here, and I went back to 2014 so I could have, you know, this looks all jumbled, right? So here's what I really like to do. Let's just first remove everything except for days on market to discuss how long it's going to take. When a seller says to you, you know, what can I expect? Or you're setting an expectation for days on market, look at the trend here. First of all, the high points are all in January. Okay, see that? January, yep, they're all January. So here we are in November. We're going to hit our high point of days on market in January as we return to a more seasonal market. The other thing to remember, like, so that's days on market trend. Okay, here's the craziness of COVID. Here is where we are. So October was 33 days on market. If I go back and look at other Octobers, how do you think we would compare? October 2019 was 26 and we're 33. What a great way to compare 2019 to today. This is all residential property. Okay. Where are we going to head? I'm really shocked that November is not climbing. That really surprises me. I guess we'll get a better, you know, understanding of this as the month goes on, but it has ticked down to 29. That shows you that there's still some really good movement going on. So how high are we? Well, we're not even as high as we were in January 20, and we're not as high yet to the 36 and 19. Back in 2015, which is a fairly decent market, it did peak in February at 54. Okay, so now so the reason I like this as a graph is now I can look at it from other points of view. Let's take a look at the appreciation point of view that we were just talking about. So now I'm going to go to volume, or I could go to median sales price. How about we do that? Sorry, let's do. I'm going to talk to you about how you're getting paid, and that one shows up in volume, not in sold count. So I jumped the gun because I was so excited. You're still going to make good money next year, guys. So hold on if you've hit a little lull. Okay. All right. Median sold price. What? Oh my gosh. Look at that graph. That's crazy, right? So some of our higher sales prices, because this is calculated by median, it means the churn and burn prices are still churning, and a lot of the higher prices have not sold, and which is probably bringing this down. This is not where we go to show appreciation. This just goes to show median sales prices. Look how active this 500,000 mark, price is. The $400,000 price ranges are very, very active. You can do the same thing in any market, so don't go, hey, this doesn't apply. The concept is what needs to stick. Individual markets have different numbers attached to them, right? So if they did come off May 2022, 565. Okay, we're down to 522. So 565 to 522. That's about 7%, maybe 6%. Is that right? So if you backed off, but look at all this other appreciation. So let's go back and go, when did you buy the property? Look at all this appreciation that's happened. This is insane. And it's just one lens to look at. This isn't a true picture of appreciation, but oh my gosh, that's crazy what's happened since 2015. All this price appreciation, just crazy. Sold count. If your sales are down a little bit, let's just undo that one now. This is just sold count. So we peak usually, again, we're returning to our summer pattern. So some of you have gotten a little nervous. I'll tell you why. You know why you're nervous? Let me go back and remind you why you're nervous. Because you were, for the last 2 years, you haven't had any drop off at all for 2 years, at zero. There was no seasonal adjustment. The buyer demand just kept going, and it stayed hot, and the faucet was turned on high blast, and it just kept going. And now that it's returning to normalcy, you might be panicking a little bit. So our sold counts. So where did we peak? Well, we peaked in 2,100 units in this particular, graph. 2,100 units was the peak in June of 2020. Not so bad at 1,800 in June the following year. How did we do last June? We were 1,400. Coming down a little bit, because if you go back and look at these other peaks, 1,400 for June is way off of what we saw back in 2000. And let me find, where is June? August, where are you, June? Right there. 1841 in June 15 compared to, where was June? There it is. The peak of 1481. So we're off about 100 units, 7 years later. But, oh, the volume. The way you're calculating our commissions, right? Look how crazy this trend is. Just keeps climbing. And that has to do with that median sales price, right? So what's the takeaway of all of this? I think the graphs can calm, especially your very, very analytical seller. Go on there and show some of these trends. Look at back in 19. Tell them, look, it's crazy to compare to this time when interest rates were at 2%. All this 2.5% monies were being dumped in by the federal government to lower rates. It's not going to happen again. So we're coming back to these trends. So days on market's going to return. Okay, so that's a great way to look at it. When you're doing I can come up here and modify this search. Another cool thing about this is that you can also use areas. Okay, so come in here and do your coordinates and do your, I like to get more micro specific. Like I could say Willow Creek, or I could say Cottonwood Heights, right? I could say, gosh, you guys, I could say Old Town. If I go down to St. George, I could say Desert Color. I could say Entrada. I'm up in Logan. Give me a spot in Logan, Cache Valley. I could do. And that can give me a real micro look at these. And then I can toggle through each one of those lenses. I think that is a must right now to set and manage expectations. Okay. Okay. Stop sharing.
Hey, Will?
Yes. Hi, Brett.
May I ask a question to
Yes, sure.
you or anyone else? How are you guys speaking to your clients who then are going to look at this data? You guys know who those clients are, and they're going to see, for example, like the appreciation example. Okay, great. Those numbers are still above what we're historically seeing 3 or 4 years ago, but that trajectory is still pointing down, and their brains just continue to draw that line down until I can say we're normalizing till I'm blue in the face. But until they actually see more, graphed data, evidence of this type of thing, all they're seeing now is the end of the graph is going like that. And obviously we have no promises, and we can't tell them where it will go other than we're feeling that normalizing. But anybody have any brilliant thoughts there that don't involve lying to our clients?
No, if it's okay, Britt, I'm going to take a stab at this first.
Please.
It's point number 8 on what we've been talking about on the 10 ways to thrive in this market. Point number 8 is to understand and discover and make sure you get what the client's why is. See, you can't make the call or talk around the expense of selling and buying versus what we're solving. They know what we're solving. Okay, so you say, well, I can't get over the whatever. I can't get over the interest rate. I can't get over the fact that houses cost a lot more than they have, 2 years ago. I can't get over the fact that maybe I've lost a little bit of equity. Maybe 7% of my equity is gone since April. I can't get over all of that. Okay, well, first of all, back to the equity. You have a ton of equity in your property. Why? Well, because you bought it prior to 2019. You have all this equity. Okay, so you still have tons of equity. So you went up 45% in 2 years. That's an enormous amount of equity. That's one thing to remember. But bigger than that is, what problem are we solving? Tell me about what needs you have. What's going on with the current situation that's not comfortable, and what's the price you're paying for all of that versus what we could be. Well, now you've got the justification. And I don't mean like I'm justifying something that's poor. I mean, I've got the logic now, because the problem is so big, it's worth me going into debt, just like we did before, right? Just like we've talked about people, what is it worth to you and the family? Now that's worth the interest rate, the equity, either from sell to buy or savings accounts or liquidating stock or 401ks, everything that goes into it. The only one who can answer the question of whether it's worth it is the client. You can counsel with them, and this is the skill set, is to dig out what problems are we solving. Now, as they talk about that, now you can weigh that on the scale versus the cost. Okay, solution to their problem versus the cost. Now put that on the scale. Now you've got something that is heartfelt, it's real, it's authentic, it's not salesy. Okay, so we can't just be data driven. That's a real mistake, is to just be data driven. The data highlights obstacles. It's never the reason. Not in residential real estate. We don't buy residential real estate for profit. It's not our source of income. Okay, that's not why we do it. We buy it fundamentally for shelter. We buy it for all the reasons why you love home. Right? That's what is at the core of it, in the heart of it. Okay, the data just lights our path as to what the obstacles are, what's in our way. That highlights problem, and then we deliver, of course, solution to those problems. Okay, so let's put data in its proper context. Right, Catherine's. Yeah, we're really just returning to historical norms, and this. Look at that. I mean, my gosh, that it looked like a roller coaster, right? We have longer days on the market in the winter, and we have the market in the summer, and so that's what's going to happen. And here we are going into winter, so let's plan on days on market being a little longer. I think that's a great way to present it, right? And to create and manage expectation. Okay, and thanks, Sally, for the agreement there. And great question, Britt. I'm really glad you brought that up. It's really, we talk a lot about what it means to be a Berkshire Hathaway agent and not just an agent. We're Berkshire Hathaway, so on one hand, we're really fighting not being snooty. Because the title says luxury. The title says, my gosh, we're at the top of everything. We're top drawer. And we want to be authentic. We want to be real. We want to be approachable. Right? So we really have to make sure we take the time to get this right when we build relationships. Anybody else? Don did the math. We are exactly average for interest rates and days. We are exactly average for interest rates and days on market. Oh, for about 40 and 50 year average. Oh, okay, got it. Okay. Great. Yeah, just remember, we're going to look. My prediction is, if I went back to this graph and I come back to this graph in January, I think we're going to see 50 days on market. Do you guys know what NAR considers to be an even buyer seller's market for days on market and inventory? How many months of inventory is an even market, and how many days on market is an even market? You guys want to guess? 6 months of inventory? Yes. 6 months of inventory is a normal market. Little longer than 60 days, Britt. 90 days would be an even market. That means even seller, even buyer. That's crazy to think, right? We haven't seen that in forever. It's just crazy to think. So we'd have 6 months of inventory and we would have 90 days on the market. It's crazy. We're well under that. And we have the job market to thank for this. That's pulling back the reins of the effect of interest rate, as the job market's just so dang good in Utah. I mean, it's as good as it can ever get. I mean, it's an A+, right? So that's where the sales are coming from.
Hey, Will.
Yes. Hi, Monique.
Hi, how are you?
Great.
Good. Hey, so I just think, in this hard market, it's a little, we're out of our comfort zone. The sellers are out of theirs. I think it's just the biggest thing is keeping in contact with them weekly, letting them know you're there for them. Pull the stats every Monday when you talk to them.
Yep.
Just let them know you're doing everything possible, and show them those view numbers.
Yep.
Those are huge, and where they're coming from.
Yep.
And then they know it's not you, right?
Yep.
And so I think you just be empathetic and just, be there for them every week, period, no matter what.
Hey, Monique.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that idea of consistency, because then you're removing the narrative of, hey, I'm pulling this specific data point and this specific data point to tell the story I want to tell. If you sort of set up a structure of the data that you're going to deliver to them consistently, then you can start changing that narrative to the data is speaking, not me.
Right.
I'm just delivering
Right.
it. That's awesome. Thanks.
And it's the market responding. It's not your fault. It's the market. The market isn't responding the way we want it to. Let's try to tweak this. Let's tweak this. But I love to email them stats, email them comparables, what's working, what's not working. Hey, this active listing is still for sale right along with us. Just letting them know what we know and not being afraid to share that information. It brings so much value to you and our company, so.
Yeah, and John, you're right. That helps get price reductions when needed.
Yes.
Yeah, so the amateur way to get a price reduction is just to say the house isn't selling, we need a price reduction. The Berkshire way is to understand the reason we're using price, okay, as an adjustment to the factors. So we're understanding because of market, we adjust price, because of demand, we adjust price. The reason we adjust price is because of the condition, okay, or the amenity competition. So just remember, we just don't ask for the price reduction. Make sure you've got the reason behind it, okay? Really good. Thanks for bringing that up. That's actually point number 7 on our 10 ways to thrive in the market, is to share the weekly report and the views report, okay? And then obviously how many people have actually shown the property. So, and properties are still moving, guys. They're still under contracts. It's still, good. It's a solid market. It's not the best market we've ever seen, and nor will we ever go back to that. And I think we can thank our, this is a blessing. There's always a blessing in disguise with some of these challenges. We were really getting beat up on not only your commission rate, but BACs was just crazy, and those are pretty much gone. All right. We're starting to see 4% BACs again. Matter of fact, my wife just put something under contract with a 4% BAC. And we joked because, like in my history of my career, my buyers never liked the 4% BAC houses. you know, so it's just my luck, you know, like, oh, it's got 4% a day. They'll find something they don't like about it, but we're under contract, 4% BAC. It's great. So that's kind of fun. Okay, I've got one more tip and then we'll call it good. And you guys I want you to have a wonderful day today helping someone. So I did this right from the start. First thing we did. And although I'm using it as, you know, hey, this is a coaching thing and here's the form. If you're not using the forms as a visual presentation tool, you're missing the best way to show complexity and the solution to the complexity and your value. So please do that. In this market right now, we're going to see subject to sale of buyer's property. Okay, that's a complexity. And we can't just use the UAR form. There's other ways that we can protect our seller. So show them that. All right. Open up the rep sheet, look at section 24 and the deadlines and the language, walk them through that so they understand the nature of due diligence deadlines and financing appraisal. Then look at the language of the subject to sale, and then look at how we get earnest money as part of negotiation. Not every deal is the same, but as part of negotiation, how do we get some compensation for taking that property off the market? Okay. And what a great way to show your value. That's my final tip, which is actually tip number 10. I think we're just going to keep playing these, we're just going to keep rotating the top 10, you know, like the top 40 best songs through the whole cycle here. Okay. Monique, yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick thought on the subject to sell when we get offers that are subject to sell, which we all love. But what are your feelings on keeping the market active on the market until they are past their, until their home is at least finished with inspections or finished financing and appraisal deadline on their current home? Keeping it active, period. Not active time clause. Because nobody looks at your home if there's a time clause on it. So is there a way just to do it active? I guess there's not.
Well, the MLSs will not allow us to keep the status of active if we are under contract with a subject to sale. If you want to marry, you can put accepting backup offers. You can put it in backup offer status. You can be clear about, what the deadlines are. You can certainly go, time clause as a counter to that. If there's another offer received, you can do all of that. And you look at all these complexities, you guys, and celebrate it. Celebrate the complexities because it builds your value every time. It's not as easy as people think. And so, yes, I think that's an excellent point to bring up.
Do you think active time clause gets more showings than backup?
Either one are the same to me. Look, to be blunt here, I think there's many times where we don't want to go under contract with someone who's got a house to sell. Okay. Right. So don't feel like I'm pushing it in any sort of way. Active is the best way to get showings. Okay. You go under contract with someone who's got a house to sell, you still have a house to sell, only guess what? You can't control it. See, that's why I think we've got to get earnest money, guys. Don't take these houses off the market and go under contract with a backup offer unless you're getting earnest money. I know every case is different. Some sellers are desperate. They want to, but you still have a house to sell. And now you can't control it at all. You can't lower the price. You can't do anything. And you still have a house to sell. So I would recommend most of the time in this market right now still to not go under contract with the buyer who's got a house to sell. Go under contract once their house is under contract. If they want to use the addendum to protect them if their buyer cancels, fine. Okay, but that's a little different than I haven't found a buyer, right? And these can get used to these discussions because all the which ways and backwards and all the different scenarios, you're going to have to be really sharp on how to navigate those. And to Cindy's point, remember, if we're in backup, days on market continues to tick. Yeah. So, okay. All right. Thanks for joining me, you guys. It means a lot to me to see you here. We had a good group today. Thanks, Joe. Good to see you, man. It's good to see you.
Your brother. Thank you.
Yeah, I sure love you guys. So many of you, we're just all good friends in this company. It's a great family. We have a good thing going. If you need anything ever, call me anytime. Happy to help you with any problem you're having. We continue to love cheering you on. Remember something, the most fulfillment you get in this business is always going to be helping someone else. It's not the commission. It's just helping someone. And I think that puts the priority where it needs to be up front. Don't put the commission up front, put the people up front, and they'll recognize it, and you'll be a magnet for relationships and a magnet for business. And it's who we are as a company. We get this mostly right most of the time. So go out there and earn those fulfillments. It's just help someone. That's where it is, right? Yeah, you're welcome. Get your flu shot too, I guess. Okay. In the chat here. Yeah. All right. Love you guys. Have a wonderful day and a wonderful week.
See you, buddy.